Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the True Crime Corner with THABEÉ. My name is THABEÉ, and I talk about true crime while I do my makeup, well, sometimes. Um, Today's case is South African. Is my first South African case that I'm covering, and it's been a long time coming actually, because this one specific case, it was requested to me last year September, but I was on my 2 month break and I was still a bit scared of talking about this case because it is still so fresh. The deaths that happened in this case were not as fresh, but because the trial started so late, so I didn't want to. The wounds had been reopened and the family was still going through a lot of emotions, so I didn't want to seem like I'm being inconsiderate talking about it. And with that being said, my usual disclaimer: with the videos that I make, I mean no disrespect to the victims involved and to the families involved. The videos that I do make is for educational purposes. So today I will be covering the case of Rosemary Ndlovu. Rosemary Ndlovu was born in 19 Rosemary Ndlovu was born in 1978 in Johannesburg, Tembisa. And not much is mentioned about her childhood, but it seemed relatively normal. She was the one sibling that was lucky enough to make it out of the poverty that they were in. She, after completing her matric, she went to try and enroll at the South African Police Services, and she was successful. So she became a part of the SAPS. She became a part of the SAPS and started working as a sergeant. She became very well respected in her field, and her colleagues respected her as well. She was a very firm person. She was very bold, so she had a lot of authority already. So as time goes on, she tries to convince her family members to take out life insurance because of the times that we're living in and because of the poverty that they lived in, and to make sure that if any one of them passed on, they had money to bury themselves or take care of the people that they leave behind. And one of these people that she was trying to get life insurance for was Witness Madala Homo. And this was her cousin. So she went to Homo's mother and stated her concerns about the way Homo lives his life and the people that he hangs around with. And she said that it might be dangerous, so it would be smart for them to cover Homo in case something happened to him. And without questioning much of anything, Homo's mother agreed because they trusted Rosemary so much. And because they trusted Rosemary so much, she said that she'd be the one paying for the insurance, for the life insurance and the funeral policies. So this was in March of 2012. A few months later, Homo disappears without alerting anyone. And Homo was known to be a person who loved his family, and he was very close with each one of his family members. So it was very alerting to the family that Homo has been gone so long without telling us where he is. So they filed for missing persons report, and Rosemary assured the family that she'd be the one taking care of the case, and she will find Homo. Not long after the search had started, Rosemary indeed found Homo in Olifantsfontein, and with a blunt force trauma to his head. And this case was not investigated like so many cases, so many homicides that happen in South Africa that do not end up being investigated fully and being solved. So Homo was just unfortunately one of those cases. And even though Homo had life insurance and took out so much policies, his funeral was pretty sad, and they just went by. They went by with the funeral with what they had, and the beneficiary of these policies was Rosemary Ndlovu. So Rosemary, even though she received 100,000 rand from these policies, she only contributed 200 rand, which is the equivalent of $13, and that 100,000 is equivalent to $6,500. So time goes on, and a few months had passed. A few months had passed since the disappearance and the murder of Homu, and now it's in June 2013. So around this time, Audrey Ndlovu, Homu's sister, I mean, not Homu's sister, Rosemary's sister, receives a call from Rosemary saying that she would like to have dinner with her because they barely spend so much time together. And Audrey was really excited because it is true that they barely ever spend time together. And she was like, okay, you can come to my room and we will have dinner here. So Audrey rented out a room in Tembisa, and later on that evening that she got the call, Rosemary went to Audrey's home to have dinner with her. Nothing much is said about what transpired during the dinner, but they did have a dinner. Later on, Rosemary returned home, and it was the evening. Everything was okay. She left Audrey at home fine, and she came home. So the next day, she tries to get a hold of Audrey, but then nobody picks up the phone. Nobody's picking up the phone, and that started to concern Rosemary, because she was with Audrey the previous day. So she started to be concerned, and she sends out a team, a group of cops to Timbisa to go check if her sister is okay. And she went along with the cops as well eventually. And the neighbors said all they heard was a scream and somebody crying, and that was Rosemary crying for her sister because they discovered her body, and she was poisoned and strangled and left there to die. But, you know, this is also just another homicide case. And even though Audrey lived in Tembisa in a room that she rented, she miraculously had life insurance and funeral policies that she didn't afford, but I'm sure Rosemary helped her pay for some of these insurances. So all of her life insurance policies, her funeral policies, amounted to 700,000, and that is approximately $45,000 that Rosemary got because she was also the beneficiary. So this is another second case, another dead family member that Rosemary benefited from. A few months later, after the death of Audrey, Rosemary's sister, um, Rosemary decided to move police stations, and she went to the Tembisa South Station, East Rand, and there she wanted to become a constable. And her new colleagues described her as somebody who is very friendly, somebody who's very generous, and she sometimes bought lunch for her colleagues, and she borrowed money to those that needed the money. But sometimes she would come in at work and she would be in a very horrible mood, saying that she's broke, that she needs money, she doesn't have money. And her colleagues knew that she had a gambling problem because she frequented at Empress Palace in Kempton Park, Johannesburg. It is a very huge casino in Johannesburg, and she spent her time there most of the time if she's not at home or at work. So Rosemary Ndlovu had a gambling addiction. This is this is in the year 2014, and this is also the year that she fell pregnant with her first child, her first daughter. I will not mention her daughter's name because I feel like there has been so much attention placed on her mother and also on her as well that I do not need to add on to it as well. So she had her first daughter with her boyfriend Morris Mabasu. Morris Mabasu was her boyfriend since 2012, and they have been living together and staying together. He worked in the United States Embassy, and he did relatively well for himself. I'm not sure about these details that he had 13 siblings, but what I'm sure about is that he took care of his siblings when he needed to. Like when he got paid, he made sure that some of his siblings are taken care of. Not like Rosemary, who just didn't care much about her family members. So Morris Mabasu was known to be a very good and supportive father and loved her daughter. But around 2014, the relationship she had with Rosemary was very rocky. They fought most of the time, and when they did fight, Morris would just excuse himself for the night and just probably spend his night somewhere else at one of his siblings or something. He just would leave to just probably for peace sake in the house. So on one of these nights in October 2014, they got into a fight, and Morris ended up leaving behind Rosemary with the baby. But unfortunately, this time Morris did not return home the next day, and this started to worry Rosemary. And this became more than one night when he didn't come back. So she went to the police station, filed a missing persons report, and they started to look for Morris. Eventually, they did find Morris at a quiet road in Olifantsfontein, and you guys can already see where this is going. He was found dead, stabbed 80 times, more than 80 times, and the only way that he was recognized was by his credit cards and his wallet. And the police knew that there was no motive behind this crime because they didn't take anything valuable from Morris. The only thing that they did was just kill him because he still had his wallet, he still had his money, he still had his credit cards, he still had his watch on. It was just that he was stabbed 80 times. So this was a murder case and it was a homicide case. But again, it was not followed through. It was not investigated thoroughly, so the perpetrators were not found. But Morris had life insurance. He had life insurance and funeral policies, and the beneficiary of all of these was Rosemary. She received 400,000 from his insurance policies and 100,000 added from his pension fund, probably from the US Embassy. So a few months has passed, and now it's in June 2016, and one of Rosemary's relatives, Zanele Zanele Mota came to come and stay with Rosemary due to financial issues that she was going through. But unfortunately, as she was staying with Rosemary in Kempton Park, she got hit by a car. And later on that evening, she was complaining of pain, and because of her injuries, obviously she had to go to the hospital. So Rosemary took her to the hospital, and her injuries were not that bad, but she got injured, so they decided to discharge her and check up on her from time to time. So they took her home. I do. Rosemary took her home and said that she will take care of her from home. But later on that evening, Zanele started complaining about severe chest and stomach pains, and she cried throughout the night to Rosemary, and Rosemary said that she'll take her to the hospital the next morning. And so she did. Rosemary rushed to the hospital the next morning, but on arrival at the hospital, only Rosemary was alive. Only Rosemary was still breathing. Zanele had passed on. And from the thorough checks that the police had made, I mean, the doctors have made, they said that she had damaged, the real problem came from the insides, because she only came to the hospital with a few scratches on her face, but the real problem was inside. She had a damaged liver and fractured ribs. So they said that they would not have released Zanele from the hospital if they noticed these injuries before they discharged her. She would not have been discharged. So these injuries happened after after Zanele got discharged, when she went home. So Rosemary said that she does not know what happened, and she was away most of the day after she went to go drop Zanele at home. So she does not know what happened at all, and that perhaps it was self-inflicted, or she got injured, or she fell, but she does not know what happened. Unfortunately, this case was not looked into further, and she also did not want to be questioned upon. She did not want to be questioned about this, because she was so distraught and she was hurt, because this was a family member as well. So she had funeral covers and policies that amounted to 120,000, and of course the beneficiary to this was Rosemary Ndlovu. This is her fourth victim. This is the fourth person that dies close to her, and she was the last person to be around the deceased. And she benefits from the deceased in such a big way, and her pockets keep getting bigger and bigger. So after the death of Zanele, Rosemary started to become close to the rest of her family members, especially Zanele's younger brother, Mayeni Mashaba. And Mayeni wanted to go to Pretoria, and Rosemary offered to take him halfway and drop him off R21, and then he'll catch a taxi probably that goes to Pretoria. So that is exactly what happened. She took Mayeni to the police, to halfway in the R21, and yeah, you guys can already imagine where this is going. The next day, the police call Rosemary and say that they have discovered a young man's body, and of course this was Mayeni's body. And he was stabbed also. She tried to claim cover from his insurance, and unfortunately this time it did not work, because she had placed herself as Mayeni's partner, and the insurance company did such a thorough check and said that, okay, if you are Mayeni's partner, you should have the proof of this. So she failed to give the proof, and yeah, she did not claim anything. So she had tried to get the cover for herself and claim it, but the insurance company did not allow it. So this was in April of 2017. So she tried again. Her killing spree continued. She went on, and her other nephew, Brilliant, had disappeared, and he was also found killed near Olifantsfontein. He had also been stabbed, and the beneficiary to these insurances was Rosemary Ndlovu. He had placed Rosemary as the mother, but when Rosemary tried to claim these insurances, she couldn't provide proof of this, so she couldn't claim. So as time goes on, this is in 2018 now, she's very desperate of money. She is very desperate to get money, and she is not lucky. I don't know if I should put lashes on. Should I put lashes on? Should I put lashes on? Does this look need lashes? I don't think so. But Rosemary became very desperate for money, and she thought of something. She thought to hire a hitman and get her sister killed, Joyce, and the five children that lived with Joyce. It was Joyce's children. So she wanted to kill Joyce and her children. So she hired a hitman that she knew that she once arrested for possessing a firearm, and this was Njabulo. This was Njabulo Kunene. So she approached Njabulo and said that, okay, I want you to kill my sister and her five children because I need to cash out on this insurance money. So Njabulo was a bit shocked with what he was hearing. Yes, he was a hitman and yes, he was a criminal, but not to that extent. So Njabulo went to the police with this information, and he felt very guilty because the youngest of these children was only 6 months and he just couldn't go ahead with it. So he went to the police station, and the police were like, okay, he's incriminating himself by going to the police, but I think his guilt was like, okay, if I go to the cops with this, maybe my sentence would be lessened. And they employed Njabulo for a sting operation, and they went undercover to try and get Rosemary to confess all of that Njabulo had said. So they said that they would place a camera inside the car of Njabulo, and all that Njabulo had to do was to get Rosemary inside of his car and trying to talk about the plan that they had to go through with these murders. So Njabulo went ahead with the cops and went in with one undercover cop as an accomplice, you know. And they met up, the Njabulo had met up with Rosemary and one undercover cop, as the undercover cop came as a partner to Njabulo. And they started talking about how they were going to do this and how they were going to burn. Rosemary wanted Njabulo to burn Joyce's house down and not shoot them or kill them because she said that that is what they do emakhaya, And fortunately, the sting operation worked because they caught her on camera. And uwaphuza womkhuhlane angithi manje kuzingena isisi nomkhuhlane ngithi niwaphuze mani lala ngoba ayalalisana then mina ngizokhona ukungena ke akunamabhadla laphana ngibuyela la esibhedlela ngibuyela la esibhedlela nayo baba endlini uyazi ukuthi ngila esibhedlela so la esibhedlela ngicelile banginikeze i-pass out bathe ngibuye ngo-4 so lana noma ngafika ngo-5 6 7 akunandaba as long ngidlulile so ngoba ngithi indawo eshisa ifuna ngishise kusebusuku siyayibona ngiklini mina nginakucala ngazi mase bangitshela indaba mina kusasa ngiyavuka ngiyagijima ngiyekhaya ngicela amalungiselelo ngiyaklima ngenza zonke lezi zinto. And she was arrested. She was arrested for 6 murders, but her trial, getting her to be guilty and building up a case against Rosemary, took so long. It took 2 years to build up a case against her. So her case began on the 22nd of October 2021, and the state had over 40 the state had over 40 witnesses that were her colleagues, her family members. Oh my god, what did I just do? Her colleagues, her family members, and people she knew that testified against her. And she got 6 life sentences.
Case beyond reasonable doubt and the accused must be convicted on the murder counts 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. That is attempted murder. The accused is found guilty of the crime of incitement.
She got 6 life sentences, and I'm just gonna read what the charges that she got, because I don't wanna, I wanna be sure about my facts. Um, she was found guilty of all charges: 6 counts of premeditated murder, 4 counts of fraud, 7 incitements to commit murder, and she will not get any parole until she reaches the age of 71. So she you know, if you go look at her court appearances, you could see that at first she did not care. She was very jokingly, she like stood up to pose for cameras, you know. She seemed like she did not care, and she denied all charges that were brought against her. But as time goes on, she even there is even a point where she fought with some of the reporters for taking pictures of her. And as time goes on, she started to apologize to the family members that she caused pain to, and she said she wanted them to forgive her, you know. But she seemed like she still did not care even after she asked for forgiveness. So yeah, rosemary rosemary was very selfish, and she took she took the lives of innocent people, family people that trusted her, people that saw her as an aunt, a cousin, you know, a sister, and she took advantage of that for her own interests. And yeah, this is very heartbreaking because, you know, as I highlight so out there. Oh, anyway, so this is very sad. And um it over the past 10 years, Rosemary gained over, I don't know, I like this look actually because I wanted to put on red lipstick. Yeah, I'm putting on red lipstick. So Rosemary gained over 1.4 million in the money that she had claimed from her family members' deaths. And this is equivalent to $90,000, around $90,000. It's so sad that that the family members trusted Rosemary so much and they couldn't see anything wrong in what she did. They wouldn't have suspected her. Sorry, not they didn't see anything wrong in what she did. They definitely did. They just didn't suspect her and couldn't believe, you know. Anyway, justice has been served, and I pray that the family members, the victims, find peace in all that has happened, because yeah, this is a lot. I'm not gonna lie, this is also a lot. Um so she's a South African serial killer. Thank you for tuning in to the True Crime Corner with THABEÉ. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and And yeah, perhaps I will continue doing South African cases, but I just wanted to start with this one because I feel like it was so big and it touched so many people in South Africa, and it's still so fresh as well. So I wanted to be respectful, and yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Love and blessings from me to you. Catch you next time. Peace. Okay, bye guys. Bye. Peace.